Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Power Platform This and That. My name is Rory Neary and I am joined today by Keith Atherton. Hello Keith.
Hi Rory, great to be here. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. We did some prep, believe it or not, for this podcast, and what we thought we would do was going to be talk about how we actually met, and we both agreed we couldn't remember, which is not a bad place to start. So I'll let you say when we met, and then I'll say when I remember we met, but I definitely, absolutely, I'm 100% sure it's not that. Anyway, so you go, Keith.
This is interesting because I wonder if it's the same thing, because we did talk about this. So if I'm casting my mind back, there's probably an event or a user group or some conference where we have. But the time I remember where we did meet properly and have a really good catch up was when you was one of the speakers at the Scottish Power Platform User Group.
Yeah,
Was
that was the one. Yeah, that was the one.
You know where I'm going next for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just for the benefit of the listeners, it was a really good event. I was one of the organisers. In fact, it was my send-off. It was the last event when I was an organiser there. Rory gave a brilliant session, absolutely brilliant. And one of the key parts of it was singing. And
yeah,
it was great voice.
You can't get away from that on this podcast, I'm afraid. So basically, the rest of Rory's career is just going to involve segueing opportunities to have a little sing every so often. And so on that occasion, I was talking about, that moment when you like export a solution or something like that. Or, you publish all customizations, that was it was. And you sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait. And I was thinking, well, you need to have a song for that. So I said, well, you should have the Blame It on the Boogie song. So you can kind of, if it's a small solution, maybe you're just going to get through the first verse or something. But maybe if it's a slightly longer one, maybe you're getting further into it. And so I can't remember how it worked. I know Will Rowe, Will Rowe was there, wasn't he?
I don't remember, actually. It was a while ago.
Yeah, and he was there, and he was cracking up in the audience anyway. And it was up in Scotland, and they were all clapping. It was so funny, and I was singing along. And were they clapping? I think they were.
We were. I know me and Charlie were. Me and Charlie were sitting next to each other, and Stuart Baxter was there as well. So it was me, Charlie, and Stuart at the time. And we were howling. We were.
It was so funny.
Along. It was great.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny. It was funny. Yes, agreed. That's what we met. And you got some Lego as well.
I did. It was a nice, lovely send-off from the guys who I still go and support the events and see them now.
Yeah.
And somewhere buried in this room, I've still not made it yet actually, is a lovely bright red phone box Lego set. It's stunning. Really, really kind of them. So it's one of those that I know I want to make the time to maybe make it one big session.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great event. We had, it was Mark Christie and a few other we knew were there as well. Malin did a really great session as well.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she was brilliant.
Event, really, no singing, but we can't all be multi-skilled like you, Rory?
Well, some people may have other views about that. So you are a Power Platform developer stroke solution architect, and from our discussions I know that you come from the pro code background. I do actually know more about your background and so on, but I think that it would be really interesting for you to talk about how you got into Power Platform. What was that journey? What did it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you say, really a professional developer background. I was a full stack developer, mostly with .NET for years. So I kind of do come from that technical background of running projects, building solutions, albeit most of that was using, say, C#, SQL Server, lots of on-prem. So I know it's not always the common way. I mean, there's a lot of great people I work with who come from an end user background or a SharePoint background, and then they found their way into the Power Platform or a Dynamics background. I know a lot of talented people who've done that and then gone from that to, say, model-driven apps and so on. So the thing for me really was, after I'd gone through the career of doing that for many years, I did start a new job. Just again, as another general developer, mostly .NET, but they might throw anything at us. And for me, it was a day one. They said, "Hey, could you write some Power Apps?" I was like, okay, don't know what Power App is. I better look into this. So I did.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what tools you would need and so on. And because I had that background of building apps, I was used to the blank screen, and
Yeah.
then you build it up from scratch, whether it be code or the actual UI elements.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
thing that really was a good gateway for me is a bit like they say, if every problem looks like a nail, use a hammer. For me, every app looked like a blank app, so it was a canvas app. That was my hammer.
Okay.
So because I was so used to building from scratch without any auto-generated UI that a model-driven might give, it was just my natural point of, hey, I can place this control anywhere I want. Hey, I can make this button really big for some reason if I really want. So I kind of just played around with the UI and just, okay, what can I make with this? What options do I have? That was my entry point. Luckily for the background, I found the coding of Power Effects quite natural early on because it was just a transition from another language to that one. So again, that kind of was one of my strengths. And then I kind of grew, the more I used the Power Platform, it was maybe 6 months or more when I started to use more model driven and found a love for that as well of, oh, wow, this has just saved me so much time. I can get to where I need to for many things much quicker. So yeah, for me, that was kind of my starting point, mostly the canvas. And then I learned to love all of it, really.
So just in terms of terminology, you mentioned dynamics, and a lot of people perhaps building canvas apps won't actually know what dynamics is. So can you perhaps elaborate on what dynamics is?
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, that's a great question. There's so many things, even me saying canvas apps, even me saying model driven apps, right? There's so many things that we maybe use so long that even with the pro dev, I just take for granted. So for some of those as well, the canvas apps, you start with a blank canvas. You can place the controls wherever you want. It's very customizable. Some people love that. I do. That's my background. Others might find it a bit scary of where do you start? The model-driven apps, which will lead into dynamics, is really a way that you can build up the data model of the tables to say, a bit like in Excel spreadsheets, here's how they link together. I've got a couple of tables, and you can build an app which will generate the grids and the forms based off those tables. It does a lot of the legwork for you to get you started.
Yeah.
The reason I mentioned that one is that dynamics are really also known as first-party apps that Microsoft provide. And they're, for the most part, model-driven apps, but they're actually pre-built ones that can give you things like customer service or customer relationship management systems. So they tend to have a different licensing model, but they give you that good starting point. Say, hey, here's something with a sales pipeline all ready to go in a model-driven app with AI built in and workflows that step you through the processes. Now you can configure it to the products and services that your organization offers, and it's that good, quick starting point to get up and running.
So obviously there's different directions in which people can go with Power Platform, but it would be reasonable to say that if you got into Dataverse and you were building model-driven apps, then one direction which you could go with that would be to go into Dynamics.
Yeah, I think so. I think the platform as a whole, because a big part of it could be the data platform, which is Dataverse, which is what model-driven apps and Dynamics use. So they've got that big thing in common with this Dataverse platform, which again is a way of managing the tables, but also much more like the security model. But you can also do that with the Canvas apps and feed into Dataverse as well. I'm throwing a lot of terms out there, but that's a good way of, I think you're right, there's this big overlap. In fact, there's many projects I'm working on now where they actually use both. They say, oh, great, well, we really want this, sales or customer service system, but they really want a custom app on the side of it as well for this very niche thing. Could you build that from the ground up? And then we'll talk together really well. So yeah, absolutely.
I think one piece of advice somebody gave me, I think it was Andrew Bibby, and he said to me, that one way of thinking about model-driven apps is just put data in front of it. And so if you actually call it data model-driven apps, then that's actually closer to what they are. You build a data model, and then the app bit of it is very straightforward. You just kind of say, well, I'll have that one, and that. I always think of it, like in Little Britain, and one of them just goes, I want that one.
Yeah.
And it just like points to it, and you just kind of do that. You just kind of go, I want that one, and you just say which table you want. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I always think when I'm thinking of modular apps, I think I want that one and that one and that one, and once you've built your table and your views and so on, actually you're probably 90% of the way to having built your model-driven app.
Totally agree. I mean, you're right. The naming is so close because that's the model they're referring to. It's the data model, isn't it? And as you say,
Yeah.
I'm ticking these 3 tables. Now I've got an app ready to go almost immediately. And then you can tweak further to say, well, actually, I kind of want that field hidden. I'm going to add this one and reorder this and tweak this, tweak that. But as you say, there's so many benefits that, again, I came from that blank slate, blank canvas starting point. It's like, great, I can change anything. But then when I started to learn about the model-driven apps or data model-driven apps, we've renamed them now, Rory. We've renamed it. We're going with it. I was like, wow. So I've created it much quicker, and it's responsive out of the box, and it's accessible out of the box. I'm like, that's just saved me a lot of time, and it's absolutely fantastic. So you get to market quicker as well. It's brilliant.
And so when we say responsive, because I am going to pick all the guests that come on here with regards to some terminology. So what do we mean by responsive?
Yeah, that's a really good term. Again, another take it for granted term for some of us. So with responsive, I did a session on this recently where, to show that model-driven apps are responsive out of the box, but with Canvas apps, sometimes there's a bit of work or configuration to make that happen. Now, responsive or responsive web design, sometimes it's referred to, again, back from my web app dev days, is really to say, okay, I've got a web page that's filling the screen, but I want it to respond if I'm using a different device. So if I'm going to view this on a smaller tablet or a smaller mobile device, many websites, Google is a simple one, right? But if you've got one that you say, well, I might use this on any device, or I'm going to use this in landscape, but I also want it in portrait as well.
Yeah.
There's many ways you can actually reorder and not just squash up the layout of a page. You can actually reorder things and juggle things to make it slick and easy to use for people. So that's really the key to responsive design. That's the goal.
Yeah, because I think that if you were, say, new to the platform and you thought about what it meant for it being a responsive app, you might think it's got buttons and it responds when you click on them. But that's not what we mean. What we mean is it responds to the size of the screen that the app is being rendered in.
Exactly. That's your layout. And again, something that might be on an ultra wide screen, a big monitor that you'd use for work or at home. If realistically you're using that in a portrait mode on a small mobile device and it's something that big, you might say, well, hey, that's not going to be readable. The layout will be awkward. It might have bands down the side. It's so small you can't read, or you have to pinch and zoom to see everything. But I might lay it out or shrink images, or maybe make the menu a hamburger button that, the 3 lines we sometimes see in Square that opens and closes the menu. So we're using the space more effectively, and it's a better user experience for people.
Yeah. And that, we could go all sorts of directions with this, but have you heard of Gestalt Principles?
Gestalt is the greater than the sum of its parts, isn't it, Gestalt?
It's actually the psychology around how we perceive objects, and when we think about where those objects are on the screen and so on. So say, for example, you just imagine, I don't know, you were looking at LinkedIn. The logo is in the top left hand corner because we know that people will naturally, in the Western world, gravitate to that top left. But also it's about how the objects are in relation to each other. So if you saw a group of icons next to each other, it could be, add, it could be navigate, whatever it might be, then you would perceive them as doing similar kind of things because of their size, shape, and proximity to each other. So that there are a load of features. On the way in which this feeds into app building and model-driven apps is that model-driven apps, you're going to get some of those elements of how we perceive objects just out of the box because everything's neatly laid out and so on. But in Canvas apps, that's on you to make sure that you place those objects in sensitive ways that mean that people kind of know how to use your app without knowing how to use your app. So one of the things, particularly on model-driven apps, is you have, obviously you have tabs and so on, but you also have these sections. And then there's one of the principles with Gestalt Principles is one called closure. And that essentially means you've got a border around things. But you see that an awful lot. You see it a huge amount. And it might just be a very small border. It might just be an off grey versus a white. But it's still something that is perceivable.
It is. It's interesting. It's like a boundary. It contains things. And it's, you know, like you say, the ribbon of buttons across the top of a command bar in a model-driven app is when you use an office tool like Word or Outlook or Excel, that's where the ribbon of buttons are at the top, and it falls in line with those kind of, you know, preconceptions we've got, or those expectations we've got, rather. And I noticed that as well. Some Canvas app developers almost always make the top bar and even the top right corner with a circle with a profile picture, and that's where you get to your account information, as if they're mimicking a common user interface. So one, like you say, that's great because that's the expectation, but in reality on a project, if you're delivering for other people, that could reduce the training needs as well. It's now more intuitive.
Yeah, and I saw a post on LinkedIn by someone who's quite well known in the UI UX world, and it went roughly along the lines of the reason why you design apps to look like other apps is because 90% of the time, or 95% of the time, they're not using your app. They're using somebody else's app. So therefore, there is a level of convergence of how things should look. There are certain things that I mean, I'm looking at I'm not, obviously people can't see it on the screen, but I'm looking at the Riverside app at the moment. I can see there's a stop, a pause, a mark. You know, I can see these are all features to do with this current recording. And I can also, so, I mean, I love it. I love that whole Gestalt Principles thing. And if anyone looks it up, then it's something you can get really hooked on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It reminds me, I was talking to a friend recently. So a few years ago, I used to be a game developer, and I'm still in touch with a few of them. Some of them working on, you know, big games like Grand Theft Auto and things. It's quite interesting what they work on, although they can't tell me anything. Some of us were talking about, you know, let's say an Xbox, you've got the controller, forms to your hand, you've got 4 buttons on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And these days, so many games fall into the convention of that's the jump button, that's the attack button, and whatever else it may be. For
it will need to be if I'm using it.
Or you can remap the keys, of course. Some of us had, we're talking about the retro devices you can get, like the old, or going back and getting an emulator and trying the old games, or trying an old Nintendo system. They're like, oh no, jump is now the top button and strike is a different one, and it's, you know, so many games had different conventions because they were still, it wasn't mature as the industry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's like, oh, I remember the game being fun as a kid, but now I'm so used to this being the jump button and I can't remap controls on this old game. It's actually thrown my experience off. I've had to relearn my muscle memory for playing these buttons. So there's a lot to be said for keeping conventions to some extent as well.
And does this perhaps reveal that maybe you've got a project to control Power Apps with a Nintendo controller, an Xbox controller?
Well, I didn't, but I do now. Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be the next podcast. So you mentioned you did games design, and I know you do a bit of art as well.
Yeah, I do. And actually, that's how they converged a bit. So I did have a job a few years ago where I was doing .NET development week in, week out. It was a similar kind of structure again and again. It was okay, but it wasn't particularly challenging. It wasn't pushing me out of the comfort zone. It was same again. And what I wanted to do was do something on the side, not as a serious side hustle, not as a business, just as a hobby, but the next level of, I always knew that games was something I enjoyed when I was young. I never built one before. I wasn't a coder when I was young, by the way. I was 17 when I started. So it was college. I wasn't doing it as a child or anything. And I thought, all those games I loved as you know, when I was really young, hey, wouldn't it be nice to try and make something like that? So on the side, I learned about the Unity game engine. It used C#, which was the language I used in the day job. And I felt that I could use those artistic skills that I had.
Yes.
You know, I've done a few paintings over the years. I've sold a few here and there. And I was lucky enough, I illustrated a book during the pandemic as well. You know, it's on Amazon. And I thought,
yeah, we'll have to get a link for that. That'd be really good fun.
Yeah, thanks. There was 2 authors, and they brought me on as the illustrator for that one. And I thought, okay, that's cool. I wonder if I could bring the art, the coding for my day job, and my love of games together, and have this creative hobby. It's creative / technical hobby. And so that was what it was really. It was kind of bringing those together of, okay, I move it to digital art. I had to learn the animation for the characters and the sprites that moved.
Yeah.
The coding was luckily given, but I did have to learn a lot more complex coding for design patterns and algorithms and
Okay.
things for what I was working on. You don't for every game, but that was a way that I could try and bring it all together. And yeah, it was just a great creative, expressive thing without the intention of becoming a new job or anything big. It was just
Yeah.
a fun thing. Yeah, I loved it.
I think I don't think I've got enough space in my brain now. There's far too much like moss and growth in my brain to have any room for any of that.
Or the lyrics fill in the head. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the slightly more structured part of the podcast. So it's built around this idea I had around something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And then I kind of sort of segue it also into with the something borrowed. I'd also like you to maybe tell me something about something you've done that you're kind of most proud of. So I'm sure you've done tons and tons of things, but maybe give you an opportunity to signal that. So if we could you give me an answer to something old in Power Platform that you think is still cool, and maybe because it's not new, it doesn't get the same airtime as other things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's so many things that I've been using from the start. It's the start of my journey with Power Platform and Power Apps. And I know we've already covered it a bit, but I'd say, Canvas apps in general, I do love that there's still a place where, we could have that full flexibility, whether we are creating another line of business app where, grids and forms and the usual stuff, and it provides like an admin function. But then you see what brilliant people like Scott Durow can do, where they push the art of the
Yeah.
possible. He's done some good examples before where, again, coming back to my love of video games, he's made, Lemmings in
Yeah.
Canvas app, which again, maybe a data model driven app, would not be quite so possible without a lot of customization. But the fact you can do that means you can push limits, you can do things. And Scott did a really good 3D racer game as well.
Yeah.
Things that, again, there's still room for that flexibility on some occasions. And I like that there is a place where you could have a pixel perfect, sometimes they call it, fully flexible place to do things like this. So I'd say Canvas apps, it's still there for now. Hopefully it hangs around. I'm still a big fan.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to something new within Power Platform that you've come across and you're thinking that's going to be around for a while, and I can see a reason for it.
That's another great question. Yeah, I think in terms of new, there's so many new things coming out that it's really hard to pick because it feels like there's a lot of investment, a lot of activity going on. And you know what, Rory, I'll be honest with you. I really try to dodge Gen AI and Copilot in this chat that we're having, but I'm going to fail, right? So the reason I'm failing is I'm going to probably pick the plan designer. The plan
Oh,
designer,
okay. Yeah.
bit of background what that is. It's a great way where you've got like this Copilot interface in the
Yeah.
Power Apps portal, the Maker portal, where you can describe the app you want, well, the solution, I should say, that you want built. And then what it will do is it will use a few agents for you and work away, say, okay, I think you want these requirements written as user stories.
Yes.
I think you want these apps being built. And I think you
Yeah.
want these automations or cloud flows being built.
Okay.
Holistically kind of form this whole solution with all the moving parts.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great way if anyone wants to get started with it or get started with the platform as a whole and say, look, you don't have to build an app from scratch or drag and drop buttons or write the code. It could be a good starting point or a learning experience to try this thing out. And you can refine the plan over time. I know they're still making changes to it as well, but say,
Yeah.
okay, that's good, but actually I don't want two apps. Could you merge them into one app? Oh, okay, that's good, but I want the view or the grid to look a bit like this or
Okay.
this. And it's a great way you can sort of refine it and change it as you go. And I think
Yeah.
the power that gives and the speed of getting to market quickly, getting the thing built quickly, is just so appealing. It's hard to ignore the business value of it. So I think as that
Okay.
gets refined, that's going to be a big thing, I think.
It's definitely a call it a one to watch. I think depending on how fussy you are about column names and so on, and I am, unbelievably fussy about them. And then, is it a choice column? Is it a lookup table? Those are big decisions, really, really big decisions that you need to make, because they're going to have an impact on the rest of the things that you build, or the possibilities or the complexity of the thing that you then might have to build. And in particular, if you're doing a Power Automate Cloudflow, then they do work very well with choice columns, because it could be that you're filtering XYZ on a choice value, and it's particularly good if it's a choice column, because they're there for a reason. And even if it's a choice column, is it a global choice, and so on. So those are big decisions from a design perspective to make. Certainly the idea of it is great. And to be fair, one thing that is cool about them is if you say, I think I wrote it in once, I'm not quite sure why, but it was design me something for a daycare nursery. And it came up with a bunch of tables, and it populated it with data. And I think that is very, very interesting as well, that they would do that, or that it does do that, because it gives you then that ability to kind of, it's not as difficult to, you don't have to work as hard to visualize what's happening there.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with, you can visualize something quick when there's dummy data, and then you could also use the Copilot to say, give me 10 more rows, or delete all the records in that table, because I'm now going to start from populating the data using the app. And I think, without having to reach out to other tools, whether it be, there's some other tools out there called the XRM Toolbox, a community built tool. There are many other ways. Even Copilot could you say, generate me some dummy data. It's just a native experience within this plan designer. Super, super useful. So yeah, really, really good.
That happens on all podcasts, doesn't it? That happens. Diary of a CEO. I'm sure I saw that on his last episode.
Real life. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think that's
we'll just have to keep it in, won't we?
Oh, why not? Why not? Right? This stuff happens, right? But yeah, no, it's. I think you're right. One to watch. I think there's going to be a lot of power, and maybe it will just mature over time and become. Maybe that's the default way of building solutions going forward. Who knows?
Yeah. And I think one thing that is really cool about it is it's not just building tables. It's the actual bit around it. It's a bit around, hey, this is our plan and so on. I mean, I'm not sure yet if this would be the first thing I would do, because I would know what I'm going to do before I make the thing. So it's a very interesting thing. And then the flip side is that if you then give that to someone new to the platform, do they even know what they've built? Do they know how big some of the decisions that they have effectively made actually are? And even things like, does a table exist already? So say, for example, let's just for fun, just say there was, I need a category table, and then they build another one, and I need a category table. And then next minute they've got car categories, and they've got another table. It might even be a table called category that's actually got a slightly different name. Actually, under the hood, it's called category_1. And you've got a category table, which is the category table. Next minute, you're writing some other bit of your application, and there's a possibility of confusion. And typically, when there is that possibility of confusion, you're going to pick the wrong one.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a tricky one. Like, playing devil's advocate is humans can make those mistakes too, and that the Copilot might as well. Would it be defined so it can see those common data model tables, those system auto-generated ones? Can it see other custom ones we've built? Would it be smart enough to say, you're right, the difference between a global or local choice versus a lookup table? Knowing the right choice to make, because that'll affect maintainability, going forward as well as the way you would code it in flows and within Power Effects. The programming language that comes with Power Apps is, would it be smart enough to deal with those, or would it be smart enough to say, hey, that's not what I want, can you fix it for me? And it actually goes ahead and makes those changes to do what you need it to do. So I wonder where that goes.
Yeah, indeed. I don't think anyone quite knows at this point.
I think so, yeah. It's kind of really nebulous, and I wonder if the people building it are fully aware of the power and the capabilities that are going to come out of this.
Exactly.
That's quite
The
a
apps,
big,
the apps that we built. You
yeah.
know, there are some sort of political topics coming up at the moment I cannot possibly mention, but they're just trying to force their way into my brain. And I don't want to go political on this, but yeah, I have had some ideas for some fun apps. So something borrowed. So something borrowed is the idea that you've seen content that somebody else has made and thought, do you know what? That is really cool. And do you know, sometimes you see other people's content, you think, oh, I wish I'd made that.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you actually think, I wish I'd made that, but actually I know I couldn't make that. Like Sean Astrakhan's videos, they're like, how do you make that?
They're
Like,
so good. Yeah, they are really good. Yeah.
he's probably completely skint because he's got all these people doing his videos for him, a team.
A production team. Yeah.
Exactly. He's got freaking drones flying around the place, and you know he's down a zip wire or something like that, and
Post-prod.
that's probably a great idea for his next video as well. So
You
Sean,
see that?
that's my idea.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to see that in the next video. Sean wearing a beanie hat, going down a zip wire in a forest or something. It's going to
Exactly.
happen. If not, he'll get Copilot to generate it or something. But I think that's a really good call because Sean is up there. You know, I've taken his Architects Accelerator course, and it's brilliant. I learned a lot. It really opened my eyes to looking at problems in different ways that maybe, again, we talked about a Copilot may or may not be able to do. Think about this a different way, repurpose this tool in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think Sean's videos are up there. It's a really good one. There's so many. I mean, I mentioned Scott.
But yeah, this is the question. You have to pick one.
If I have to pick one.
Yeah, you have to pick one, even if it's, well, you can't do your own stuff. That's the only rules in this.
No,
and you can't do my stuff as well, but I don't know where you're going to find those, so
yeah.
Good luck.
Choose you just a curry favour, but no, I certainly wouldn't choose my own anyway. But yeah, you know, Scott Durow with the games, again, pushing the art of the possible is the interesting part more than the game for me.
Yes.
Is knowing that, hey, we can take things this far. We talked about April Dunnam a previous time as well.
Yeah.
It was really April Dunnam's videos that got me started learning Power Apps, and she's fantastic. Great teacher, very smart, and again, with the, not that this is important, but with the app development, the pro dev background, it's very transferable to developing apps, particularly with Canvas. I think there's so many out there. If I really had to pick someone at the moment, one of my favourites at the moment is probably Nathan Rose.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Nathan does a lot of great videos, very short form, and I know many of us are busy, so that really fits in well for me. If I've got 5 minutes, what's this? I love that he covers technical topics, things that are coming out, and he's really, I find he's really authentic. He's really honest. Say, I'm learning this thing. I've played with this. It didn't work how I expected, but I'm going to show you all. I want to play that back. Tomorrow I'm going to try another thing. I'll let you know if it works. And he does that. And he'll do that, and he'll build like a LinkedIn carousel, shows this working. Which is with maths backgrounds that, you know, showing the workings great. I'm like, oh, actually, maybe you could do this instead. So I think his videos and his LinkedIn carousels are two standout things. I've been lucky enough to meet Nathan, lovely guy as well. And yeah, he's just doing great work. So he's one of the people I follow the most at the moment. I recommend everyone does. Nathan's brilliant.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what we'll do is, I guess, would it make most sense to put a link to his LinkedIn feed would probably be the best place to start in terms of show notes.
Great idea, because he seems to surface all of the content through his feed on LinkedIn. So
I think
if
so.
it takes you out to YouTube, it'll be shown on there. Great idea.
Okay. And what about yourself? So what have you done in Power Platform that you're most proud of? And you don't have to kind of overthink this. You could just think of, because I know that you've done many, many, many things. So the easiest way to answer this sort of thing is just to think of whatever pops into your head and go with that.
I think one of my favourite things that's top of mind at the moment, I've done a few things perhaps. I know you have too. You know, I've been a big fan of your Power Apps courses and the things you did during the pandemic and so much more. But in terms of me, I mean, a couple of things. Helping on the forums. I love helping people.
Okay. That's
the heart of what I do, and I would have put that first. But the thing for me at the moment is, me and Sarah Jones, a friend of ours, has put together a new user group called Power Platform high fives, and it's great because we have like a monthly event. It's virtual, so anyone can attend from anywhere, even people, whether they're based where Nathan is in New Zealand or people in the UK like you and I. And that we always find there's a really good vibe and there's good engagement, people chatting, having fun. It's quite open form. It's not formal lectures of here's a session, but it's great where people can learn more and chat. So, oh, how did you do that? I like that. And hey, let's catch up at the next in-person event. And I just like the vibe and the community that's building around it. So I'd probably say Power Platform community high five.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah Jones is so much fun. She's we always have a good time together. And I met up with her in Manchester actually, and we went out for the night. I think it was like a Tuesday night. And the evening ended at 2 a.m. And the funny thing was, we went for a meal in the hotel that she was staying in, as in she was, and we then went down to a bar which was about 100 meters down the road, and then we said goodbye to them at 2 a.m. So literally the entire evening was, I mean, I don't think she got steps in. That's all I'm saying. Apart from the dancing was good.
Got the cardio in that way. I think that was a lot of fun. I remember the Scottish summit we went to in Aberdeen, and that was a lot of fun. All of us there. Great to catch up with everyone.
And I think I missed the second night of that.
Yeah,
I missed the second night of that.
We caught up on the first night actually at the bar in the hotel actually. And
yes.
That was the other thing that came to mind when we talked about where we'd met, but it's more because we had a really good conversation, but it wasn't the first time that we'd spoke. Yeah,
we did, didn't we? Yeah, that was before I started learning the guitar. Actually, they had a guitar on the wall there.
Of course they did. They have that rock and roll type.
They did, didn't they? Yeah. Okay, so this is my favourite bit of the podcast. Actually, this is your opportunity to lose your MVP status. So, game on. so this is something borrowed, something blue, right? So this is something that really annoys you in Power Platform. It makes you a bit sad. Like, I like the idea that it makes you mad, really, to be honest. And it's something that really, think, this is so simple, but why is it just so hard? That kind of like thing. And obviously you can go with whatever, you can be politically correct, and you could say that maybe, Power Apps icon, maybe the shading should be ever so slightly different or something. But, it's up to you.
Oh, nothing. I love it all.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I'll just AI your voice with something.
It's in a really, really badly overdubbed in a different way.
Yeah.
I think I did like the pilot you did with Sarah Guest, where you mentioned about the environment variables, where the text input is very small, and the moment you said environment, like I knew where you was going. I knew you was going to say that, because
brilliant.
I think that too. I was like, hang on a minute, there's a bit like the Power Automate Cloudflow, the classic designer. It's like, here's your expression box, and it's like it's teeny tiny.
Yes.
Like, we're going to be writing decent expressions, but I know that's improved since with new designer. It's a really good one. It's a really good question. So mine is a bit more, not one specific thing. It's a bit more the concept. So
okay.
The thing about being blue, and I know the teams at Microsoft, I know the product teams work hard on this.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to beat them up about this and make it a therapy session. This is the therapy segment, isn't it? Right.
Okay.
But I do find there's a lot of things, and I know there'll be good reasons, that stay in preview.
Okay. Yes.
So I'm not pinpointing specific things. If I had to, it would be some of the modern controls which are gradually coming out of preview. But if you look at the PDF viewer, if you look at some of those other controls, some of the modern controls, some of the features under the user-defined functions, which I know are kind of still in development, they're still active development, is the impression I get, I should say. I'd really love if the timeline or the generally available in the release planner was quite accurate to say, we're on this. Don't worry, you don't need to wait 2 years for it, and it'll still be hanging in preview. You'll have this in 6 months, and here's some commitment, or you'll get version 1 in 6 months. But You and I, Rory, we consult, we build things, we architect things for other people. We know that if something's in preview or experimental, the SLA doesn't exist, or it's something that's not recommended for production. Hand on heart, most of the time we can't recommend we build that, but we might have a cool thing that we know is bulletproof. It works the way we want, but with the preview flag, we just, in most cases, not allowed to, or recommend that we can't use it. And there's somebody I'd love to.
There was actually a really good example of this in a project I was working on, where there is now a Power Apps stream control, and it was in preview, and it may still be in preview. Actually, I'm not entirely sure, but one of the features of it was that you could use it. It was brilliant. You could even preview it. As you know, when you're building your app and you hit the preview and you go, "Oh, brilliant! Look, it's brilliant. This works, doesn't it?" Right?
Yeah.
Apart from, it would not work if you actually played the app. So if you played the app, the control would not work. It was like I've never seen anything that could do that. And
the wrong way around.
It's like, wow, that's just like blows your mind. The idea that, and the thing is, that stream control is really good. It's really, really good. And it now does work. That's the good news story. The good news story is it does work. And the reason why that's cool is because now you can actually, with reasonable ease, build yourself a library, an app with essentially a library of videos that are internal to your organization.
Brilliant.
Because before then, you didn't really have a way of surfacing a video in stream. So that means now you can throw a video into SharePoint. It will effectively streamify it, and which means that and then what you do is it's a bit technical now, but you essentially you try and share the video, and then you pull out a piece of code. It's quite a small piece, but essentially it's like an embed type code, and then that's the thing that you throw into the. It's called it's something like media. It won't be called media because I think it's called stream URL is the property of it. But you throw that in there, inside quote marks, if that's how you're doing it. And if you're referring to a table of data, then you'd throw the column in there, and then away you go. You've got this amazing ability to have a library of videos in the context of a Power App, which I think is a really neat thing to do. I mean, honestly, I'd probably do that in every organization. Funny enough, I have, cool. Sorry. No, I did actually do one version of it where I made a custom page, and in that custom page, I used a stream control, and the stream control was effectively hard-coded to some training in relation to how to use that particular model-driven app. I thought that was interesting.
Nice. That's a really good use case as well, isn't it? Like some video learning, and it's great you've got a control. You don't need some kind of clunky iframe approach with the HTML snippet to embed, which is what YouTube can provide you with, or other channels. But that's actually really useful as well. So yeah, more of that, please. More useful controls, and not ghosting controls of hey, here's your robot butler control, but it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, we could go quite far with the controls, couldn't we? So with the it's like a combo box. I don't know if they call it a combo box. The modern controls combo box.
Yeah.
And if you say for example, no, it's like a text search, right? So you put a text search in, or rather a text box, text input, and then you've got a gallery underneath, and the gallery effectively looks at what's in there. But say for example, I look up Keith, and I've got a table which has got lots of people's names in. You actually have to click off that in order for the gallery to understand that the value has actually changed inside your text box in the modern controls. But in the classic controls, it'll just do it whilst you're typing. It understands that value has changed. I think that's quite interesting. So then you kind of have to put these dummy button on the side so that somebody kind of puts it in and then clicks something that actually does nothing other than takes them off the off.
That's interesting. Yeah, because like you say, with the classic control, one you can type in and have it on the type of the characters.
Yes.
Or you can select the delay output property to true, I belse it is, to say after half a second of inactivity,
Yeah.
now before my search. So it's not on every character. The modern one, I would have really hoped it was not on the lose focus or the tab off. That it
Yeah.
is, as you say, the equivalent of there. Hopefully they bridge the gap. Otherwise, I can think of all kinds of tricky workarounds with the timer, just checking every second what is in that box and then refining the search, which is a workaround. You don't really want to do that.
Yeah. So
Maybe something missed. Yeah.
I feel as if in this, I'm not going to do it now, but it'd be so funny. Like if for every, and then I could have like a Rory rant section, and it'd be something so really trivial.
Yeah.
That's all. It's going to just be, you've got to lower the standard, the bar of what Rory's going to rant about. It's probably going to be something like super trivial, and then that just drives him nuts. So
Like
yeah,
a
I did a
button.
little post today. I did a post today with the new Power Automate designer, right?
It's the buttons. Was it the buttons?
Did you see the one?
I saw that. I read that earlier. Yeah.
So because what it does is at the top, it kind of goes save, test, and publish. But if you click test, the only way to test it is to publish it. So you then do test and publish. And so it would seem logical to have that button the other side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, now that I've noticed it, I'll always notice it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that will always be always be the pothole that you hit because you know it's there. It kind of reminds me in Teams and some other things where like, Teams isn't too bad with this, but let's see the share button is right near the leave meeting button. And a quick, if you're rushing around, click, 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 like you've dropped the meeting, or there's places where I've seen much worse than that, where the delete button is right near the save button, and there's no prompt on the delete.
Yeah.
Something where that UX is kind of a problem. It's not a good UX at all. But I did see that, and I saw some funny comments as well. I think Parvez had a very interesting comment on that one as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's just these thoughts pop into your head and so on, and then it's interesting to kind of just sometimes you're just going off on one, and sometimes other people think the same thing and so on. But I still think that ultimately Power Platform is just so cool. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't think it was. It's really amazing in terms of all the things that we can do and conceive and so on within the platform. And it is fascinating to think that I can come as an ex-accountant to the platform and get value out of it, and you can come as an ex-games designer and .NET developer and come to the platform and also get something out of it. And people can come from SharePoint and get something out of it. People can come from Dynamics and get something out of it. And I think that's also what makes the community so kind of diverse as well, because they are coming from different angles.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think because the unit in Microsoft is known as business applications, that wraps Power Platform as well as Dynamics it's really looking at things that help a business or help with business value. And it doesn't, as you say, it doesn't matter if you come from that end user as an accountant or from some other field. Or I spoke to a really good scientist yesterday who did a career switch, and she's now a really strong Power Platform developer.
Wow.
Or a pro developer like me, where again, before I thought, with most code, I can build anything from the ground up. I could build that, streaming control. I could build an app. I could build anything. But really, the onus and the focus is on the business value as a business application, and that's where we can all drive value to say it's either helping my organization, or you and I build things for other organizations as consultants, or it might be personal productivity. The amount of people I know who've built or agents to say make my life easy, or ChatGPT to say, or give me the latest Power Platform news at 7 a.m. every morning in an email. Bang. That's helping me keep me up to date, helping my life. So we can all get value from it, I think.
If you could just add to that prompt and send it to Rory as well.
Yeah. and send Rory a fake version just to throw him off a bit. There we go.
Yeah, tell him that buttons have changed.
Yeah. And he'll celebrate on LinkedIn the next day. Yeah. Victory. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Exactly. Do that would go down as a good joke? It would never go old as well.
Yeah, every day a new thing. Yeah. Hey, environment variables box is now the size of the screen. No, it's not.
But I can't see anything else. Oh dear. Which is probably a good time to bring this podcast to an end, because clearly we're not being very serious.
Sure. Good call. Good call.
So now we get to the part of the podcast where we do a desert island disc, which is an opportunity for you to kind of just think of a piece of music that you like and that's got maybe a bit of relevance to you and so on. And then Rory might do something with it, and then again he might not do something with it.
I see a guitar in the background there.
Exactly, yeah. A tuned guitar. Yeah.
Unlike this one, this one's not in tune.
Okay.
And, I'm not a great player, so I won't play it anyway. So you get me the heads up on this. So the song I thought about, one of my favorite bands is Queen. I think they've got such a great range, a great repertoire as well. And so one of the favorites for me is I Want to Break Free. This is one that I remember when I was younger, probably still at university. And when I was at university, I was actually studying science. I was on a physics degree, and I remember, that music was out around the time. They're really popular. I was getting into playing the guitar, or attempting to play the guitar and music. They were one of my favorites, and there's so many good songs. It was tough to choose which one, but I do remember hearing this on the radio, and it just has got a great vibe about it. And I remember hearing it, and that was at the time, at university.
Yeah.
Some of us who've been, it's like, okay, am I going to stick with this physics thing? Am I going to change when I graduate, which I did? I went to programming. That just had a stronger appeal for me. What's next? Where do I move? What job do I get? Do I stay with physics and do a PhD? Like, I was kind of looking at everything at that point. It felt like all options were open, and it was kind of like, a significant time in my life. Mm-hmm. And it's a great song as well. So I've gone with.
That's fantastic. And it's a great song in terms of perhaps some of the people that would be in the audience, because they would also see that using Power Platform opens doors for them that would have otherwise been closed. So yeah, it's quite unfortunately as well, it's also one of the songs that he sings that's not kind of crazy high as well. Have you ever tried to sing along to Don't Stop Me Now? It's like, tonight, oh, this is not too bad. I think I can sing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then and then it's like, no, we're still up here. What's going on?
And he's still keep that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Some of the range he had, and some of the things like that where it pushes it, or showpieces like Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's all over the place in a good way. But you're right. I think it's a good parallel. Anyone who's, I know you've worked on the Power Up program with Charlie Phipps-Bennett, and that's great for career switchers. It's a great free course provided by Microsoft to help you career switch into the Power Platform. Some of us may be going through other things where you're looking to find your first job in that space, or where you're looking to go from permanent to freelance in that space, or any kind of parallel where someone's looking for that new chapter in their life in any way, work or not work related, I suppose, as well. It's got that great parallel.
Right. So, word of warning for anyone, including you, Keith, is that I have not learned this song. I certainly haven't learned it on the guitar. Yes, I have. I have not been. I have not gone to sort of, I don't know, Trinity College in London for the purposes of being able to. That was the song, by the way.
Rather trained Rory here.
So let's see if I can actually play this. So hold on, I've got one of these. I want to break free. I want to break free. I want to break free from your lies. You're so self-satisfied, I don't need you. I want to break free. God knows. Actually, it's really high, this one. Knows. God knows I want to break free.
Love it. Great job. Well done.
The B is a bit harder. I didn't realise it had a B in it. That's a bar chord. And then you've got to do the three fingers.
I can fret for that one.
Wasn't expecting that.
No, they did a few of those on I Want It All. I think that was B minor, if I remember correctly, because I remember learning that.
Oh, I could have done B minor. I was thinking, is it B minor? Is it Is it B? Oh no, it's B.
Is it B major on that?
So yeah, exactly. It's B major. It's like my finger had to move even further along. Yeah. Oh, that was so much. I've had so much fun, Keith, in this podcast. It's for me, it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. It allows me to get together with people that I like, and we get to talk a bit about tech. There's a little bit of structure to it, and it's also hopefully something that's of value to other people out there. People maybe not sure about what they're doing next, or whether or not this platform is the right thing for them. But it's hopefully an intro that's quite accessible for them to be able to listen to. And I don't know about you. You listen to podcasts, don't you?
A lot. Yeah, I do. Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was talking, and you've got your own podcast as well.
Yeah, On Air in the Cloud. Yeah, with Gregor Suttie and Matt Boyd.
Yeah. And so what are you doing whilst you're listening to your podcast? Are you just at your desk working, or are you doing other things?
Yeah, I have a thing where I think when I'm working, I get the full focus. I sometimes used to have instrumental music in the background, but anything with lyrics or podcast that will detract my attention enough that I don't have the focus. The main thing I do with podcasts, I used to go through a lot more, and like general tech ones as well as comedy and other learning as well, was when I was commuting. I used to go an hour each day.
Okay.
Back to an office. I used to get through loads. These days, it's really if I'm cooking in the kitchen, or I'm cleaning the house, or I'm doing some kind of mundane thing, or driving, which is a little less often these days, but I still do most days, is a way. It's just like I can have focus enough to take it in, and it's not distracting me in any way. So mostly just while I'm doing routine tasks, I would say.
Exactly. And if anyone does want to say what they were doing, I saw where you were going with that. I saw where you were going with that with Keith. Keep it clean. If anyone wants to let me know, were they out with the dog? I'm sometimes doing gardening, so my garden gets a massive haircut. Anytime the Boost podcast it's not Boost at all. It's more the Chop podcast, to be honest. Whenever that's on, but it's hopefully people can be outside, go for a walk, whatever it is, but still feel a little bit connected. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and to anyone, like, subscribe, all those sorts of things, share with other people. But hopefully you've just had a good time, comment, whatever it is, and I will see you all in another episode. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.